Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Winging It F1 podcast. It's the day after the Brazilian Grand Prix, one of the most dramatic, exciting F1 weekends probably ever, at least for a very, very long time. And with myself, Nigel, to discuss it all is, of course, the two usual people who have had to do about nearly 100 podcasts with me because they've missed a few each, and I've missed a few each as well. It's Freddie Coates, Adam Dickinson. How are you both doing on this fine Monday afternoon / morning for you, Adam, because time zones, isn't it?
Still fine here. Still very sunny outside. I had to shut the blind. It's that sunny so people can get the image of how sunny it is. Yeah, I'm doing good. It was a fantastic weekend of Grand Prix racing, and I'm very excited to talk about it. But yeah, I'm doing good outside of that as well.
I'm in a similar position. I'm still very high from a whole weekend of shouting "Vamos" very liberally.
Yes, absolutely.
And the racing was good too.
Portuguese? Is Vamos Portuguese as well as Spanish?
It was on the big Heineken adverts, so I just said it a lot. And also, I said it. I got into the spirit of it due to Carlos Sainz in the sprint race.
The spirit.
So the spirit of the Vamos.
What time was the race?
Vamos a lot. It was
5.
Yeah, the actual race was. The sprint was 7:30. So I had a few glasses of wine down me by then.
Well, there we go.
That really helped. Yeah. I'm not working this weekend, so I'm fine.
I was.
Of all the weekends I've wanted to get stuck into writing news, it's been this one. And it's not stopped. It's not stopped this Monday morning either. Anyway. Yeah. Nigel, take control of the podcast.
I can't take control. I'm not a controlling person. You know that.
News just in. Vamos is in Portuguese as well as Spanish. So we can
Vamos.
Go on to bed.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Adam. Right, let's talk about the race then. Where on earth do we start? I think we've got to talk about Hamilton's disqualification, sorry.
All of his setbacks, I think. Yeah, why not? Let's do a chronological order of what annoyed Lewis Hamilton today.
He took pole position, it was a great lap. Was the disqualification right? Yes or no? Let's quickly go around. Yes or no?
No.
Yes, it failed the tests.
Yeah, I was joking, it was.
Yeah. Why, Adam, do you think he deserved to be DQ'd?
Well, like Freddie said, that's the rules. He failed the test, and it's fairly black and white, unless Verstappen extended the gap or something, I don't know, unless he tampered with it in some way, which I don't think he did. Then it's like we said for Seb at Hungary. It's kind of it's tough, but that's the rules, and it's very clear what teams have to do to get around it, and they will not get around it, comply with them, and they didn't. So, yeah.
I mean, Mercedes were still very angry, though, weren't they, Freddie? And it took a long time to make the final outcome of it. It took nearly 20 hours, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Mercedes are angry more. They're sort of distancing themselves from the arguments of them failing the test. They're more fighting fire with fire, which gets us onto a really sort of complicated discussion that's being had. The Mercedes is trying to drive the narrative that Red Bull are in a similar position to they are, because Red Bull, after qualifying the past 3 races now, have had to change their rear wing, which is a normal occurrence to change bits of the F1 car from qualifying to the race in park-friendly conditions, because gravel chips at things and that kind of stuff, and it's normal to change to the same specification. And Red Bull have made requests for the parts of their rear wing for this in Austin, Mexico, and now in Interlagos. So Mercedes are fighting fire with fire and basically saying, well, Red Bull are getting away with doing all this stuff, which is normal stuff, and Mercedes know it's normal stuff, but they're trying to drive a narrative that's not really there. So I think they're just basically, I completely get this. They've had it with the lobbying this year that's off the scale, and obviously the FIA team radio stuff helps it appear like there's so much more of it. But and we'll get on to during the race later on. But it's very, I think they're just, it's like there's been a switch in sort of definitely Toto Wolff's mindset. Sort of go, oh, I'm sod this. 2 fingers up to Red Bull. about everything, and that seems to be why they're angry. I think they're angry just at the character of the team they're against.
Okay, that's interesting. Do you not think, though, if it was the Horner saying what Wolf's saying, there'd be more of a backlash?
I do, yes, I do think that. That's just general perception. That's a different debate, but that's a general perception. It hasn't really come into this, I don't think.
Yeah, I think rightly or wrongly, or somewhere in the middle, which is where I think it is. Horner has a reputation, and that kind of fits into that reputation, as Freddie says.
Netflix driven, sure, but it's still there, the reputation. And Grant, to be fair, I wrote an article a couple of months back about all the times Red Bull and Mercedes have protested each other. I can only find one Mercedes to protest Red Bull. I find a few decent examples of just complaints about stuff from Red Bull. The DAS gate is a big one.
Yeah. Well, either way, was you going to say something?
No.
Okay. Great hosting. Either way, Hamilton was disqualified. He had to start from the back and then somehow charged up to 5th in a 24-lap sprint qualifying race, whatever you call it. I mean, I thought he was only going to get up to 9th. I mean, to get up to 5th is absolutely remarkable. I mean, is that what you guys thought? How high do you think he was going to get?
It was exactly the same. I thought 9th was ambitious. I thought he was going to get sort of held up around the sort of Vettel kind of period. I thought he'd take longer to get past Stroll, Tsunoda, Vettel, Ocon, all of that. And I thought that was going to be a flipping nightmare for him. And it was a little bit around Ricciardo, a bit DRS train. But once he dealt with that, and there was a little bit of a swapper for Ricciardo, I think, which did help him. He was able to then to pick off, and there's a bit more spread out later on. So we didn't have. You needed DRS to defend from Hamilton, basically.
Yeah.
I think I agree with that. I think the damage was done in the first 3 or 4 laps when he got up to about 14th very quickly, and then it was just kind of picking off, drivers. He's a better driver in a better car than most of the people he was overtaking, if not all. So, it's just really leveraging that advantage, and he did that very well. But I think his opening lap just is phenomenal. It's just one to watch back and admire, because there's just so much going on all over the circuit. He makes, it's not just a lump into turn 1. He, it's really fantastic driving across the lap. And it's, it really, I think that obviously qualifying, was kind of set, I guess, the tone for his weekend, and then the disqualification kind of sledgehammered that, and this was kind of a really important point for rebuilding that momentum for the weekend that eventually led to him winning the race on Sunday.
I think my thoughts with the whole kind of situation is previous times when Hamilton has started from the back, and he has done it at Brazil. He did in 2017 after he crashed in qualifying, which was a mistake on his part, which was a rare mistake from Lewis. But he came back through to, I think, 4th in that race, but it was a distant ball, I'm pretty sure. Other times, 2016, when that car was ridiculously dominant. And it's always this sort of first lap approaches that kind of interest me. Like, I remember China 2016, which is a famous one for his engine failing in qualifying. He was a bit aggressive on the start and lost his front wing on the first lap. And then that set him back, and he only finished 7th in that race, I'm pretty sure. And then at Spa, he started from the back as well because of engine penalties. That was one of the few races with a red flag and a stoppage and everything. And he came through to 3rd, which was a lucky 3rd. So really, for him to get up to 5th in 24 laps just on driving is in a much closer field than for the Mercedes, definitely, than we've seen in probably about 7 years, I'd say. I'd say it's the closest field across the midfield to the Mercedes as well. Wow, really? I'm still shocked by the whole thing.
I've got to ask, how much is it him and how much is it the car? Because that's what people will be debating about, I guess.
Nigel, I think you've got an answer to this, because whenever we've discussed taking engine penalties, you've always referred to Valtteri Bottas and Sochi.
Yes.
So
go.
So I think really that's for you to answer.
I think it's 85% him. I really do.
Yeah.
I think only him, and maybe Verstappen, because of Verstappen has to in Sochi once, and Kota was flew up the grid. I think only them 2, 3 or 4 drivers perhaps on the grid can do what Hamilton did. But what impressed me was, people say, oh, it's easy to overtake, he had a fast engine, but it's the way he followed the cars in the middle sector to not get in the dirty air, to drive different lines, to not overheat his tyres as well, especially on Sunday when the temperatures went up. These tiny things which I don't think people think about, because it's so easy to push hard, make overtakes, when the tyres fall off the cliff, but he just kept having the pace. He was just relentless. The way he does it to manage his tyres in the dirty air with traffic, make clean overtakes, it's just world class. I think that's where every other driver, including Verstappen, lacks that edge against Hamilton. I don't think anyone on the grid is better than Hamilton in that part. So I think that's what was most impressive for me. To get up to 5th was just unthinkable. I mean, I think Martin Brundle said during the commentary when David Croft said, if you might get 6th, I think Brundle said that'd be ambitious.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was just incredible. It really was. And yes, he had the straight line speed, but ultimately, for me, you've got to be close enough coming off that final corner, make the overtake, especially if you are in the DRS train. So it was just that. It's just all about the middle sector, the way he manages tyres. So that is my answer to my question.
He drove that middle sector like a kart race, in the way he was using those corners sort of unnaturally for the fastest way around that track. And it was very common for him to sort of really not go aggressive into the corner to get a really good exit, which enabled him to then get a really good exit for every corner and stay close. And that carried on. That essentially, he sort of learned how to follow Verstappen for so long for the race in the sprint, by knowing how to stay close and how to keep the tyres in a decent window whilst also not stressing them, and also correcting the dirty air and taking different lines throughout the entire middle sector. I think, to be honest, that's some genius racecraft that goes unnoticed, which thankfully was kind of noticed because he got such a high position. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, completely, and I completely agree with all of that. And I think the final lunge at the inside of Norris just kind of sealed it. I know Norris kind of said afterwards that he wasn't defending or whatever, but it's
so far back though. So far back.
I kind of don't know how much I buy that, and also just the fact that it was so unexpected. I was watching it thinking he's not going to do it. There's no way he's going to do it, and he did. And he came out in 5th, and that just kind of sealed what was a fantastic Saturday for him. And it was really just enjoyable to watch. It was kind of good driving that's enjoyable to watch, which isn't always, when you see him kind of smash a quali lap, like that's cool, but it's not maybe the same level, especially for kind of more casual fans. It's not the same level of enjoyment, whereas this is just something everyone can appreciate, because it is, to get that high up the grid and overtake the drivers he did, Alonso, Leclerc, Gasly, Norris, and there are like 5 more I could tack onto that as well. It's just phenomenal.
The overtakes, some of the overtakes were easy, but that's because he did the hard work before it. And no matter what car you're in, even if you're in a faster car, to follow another car in F1 these days, closely and twist corners, is seriously difficult. But that's what he managed to do, and that's why he finished so high up. Of course, he did have his 5 good players penalty, which meant he started 10th. What were your thoughts before the race in terms of how high he could finish? I thought podium. I was thinking he could win this if things go right. But when Verstappen took the lead, I didn't think he would win, but somehow did. So what were your thoughts pre-race?
I was the same as that. I thought he could win. I thought there was a chance, particularly with Bottas and Pole. I thought there was a chance. And from his obviously we were aware that it's a completely different approach to that race and so on, but his pace in qualifying and his pace in the sprint was so that far above that I thought, okay, maybe there is a chance that he can be a bit of a hunter here. And then, like you say, Verstappen took the lead. Perez got second. That was the crucial bit for me. Because I did think if the Mercedes is the faster car, Bottas might be able to do something here. And sorry, that's mean. But anyway,
he did it the sprint quali, to be fair.
Exactly. That's what I mean. He has had some very good moments this weekend at Valtteri. But yeah, when Perez got there, I thought, okay, well, this is going to be a back off everyone and then have Max launch into the distance. And it nearly did happen. But Hamilton did another ridiculously aggressive start. What did he do? He was in the inside of the slow starting Alpine ahead of him. And
nearly got pinched, but he just avoided it.
Yeah, and then he went round the outside of Gasly at Ferradura, which was ballsy as hell.
That was definitely hold your breath stuff there. Adam, what was you thinking before the race for Hamilton?
I guess similar to what you said. I thought it was passable, but I guess the pace advantage of the Mercedes is what made me think that. I think I knew he needed to get up in the first 5 laps of the race. He really needed to get up near the front because, if he overtakes, a car a lap or something like that to get up to there, then it's just not good enough, really. He needed to get up there straight away. But after Saturday, I kind of thought he could do that. So I think, like you, I thought he kind of rested on Verstappen and whether he was able to get past Bottas. And when he did, then I kind of thought, it's probably second is on the cards for him. I mean, he got up to the back of Bottas so quickly.
Yeah.
And then obviously got past Bottas, and then there was the safety car which kind of played into his hands. But to get that high up the grid, and he kind of, again, throughout the first lap, he made several overtakes, and you just seemed to see him battling every corner. But he was never kind of on the defensive. He was always kind of probing, even if the move didn't come off. He was setting up a move further on, or just letting the car know that he was there and that he was getting past. And I didn't even notice when he got past the 2 Ferraris, because it was just like suddenly, and there he's suddenly, on the back of the front runners. So, I think, before the race, I was kind of waiting to see how it would play out over the first kind of 5 or 10 laps. But I thought it was possible, but, I thought it would have been a big ask. And obviously the pace of the Red Bull over the whole race would play into that as well. So I thought there was a fair few factors that kind of needed to be settled. But
I was surprised it didn't start on hards, actually, but it didn't matter in the end. In fact, no one started on hards, but
2 more things from me on this is just that the one position he was starting in is probably the most, if you're going to statistically talk about it, the most Jeopardy-esque position for first lap instance, which is bang in the middle of the pack. And it's just like, well, if anyone's going to accidentally get tagged, it's Hamilton. And also, I think I read this on the race that he was never more than 5.7, I think it is, seconds behind Verstappen at any point in that race.
Oh wow!
Which I think is pretty decent.
That can't be right. No way.
I don't know. Wow. Yeah.
I even have to that is, if that's right, that is outrageous. That is unbelievable.
I will go and double check that while you 2 carry on. But yeah,
that is outrageous.
To be fair, no, that does, like, now I'm thinking about it, that does kind of sound right. Like,
he was
it
able
sounds crazy when you first say it, but actually thinking about the way his and Verstappen's race panned out, the way he was able to get up so quickly to the back of the kind of Mercedes Red Bull train, that's phenomenal. Though
when he was behind the Ferraris in like 6, like surely there weren't 1 second gaps between the cars. So, well, if that is right, it's pretty outrageous.
I can't find the source for it, I would say, actually. So take it with a pinch of salt.
But either way,
don't just believe it. If it's the narrative, believe it. It's right.
Actually correct.
Yeah. Got so on Ed Straw, the race in his ratings, he says about Verstappen that he was never more than 5.7 seconds clear of Hamilton. So invert that, and Hamilton is never more than 5.7 seconds behind Verstappen.
Nigel, did he say that in your ratings?
You can check that out on racingnews365.com. I didn't say that fact. No, I probably said something else than what I said, even though I wrote it a couple hours ago. Moving on. He got past Bottas, and then he got past Perez after, was it 3 or 4 laps, I think? And then if you compare that with Bottas couldn't even get close to mount a proper tackle or a proper overtake, whereas Hamilton quickly got by. Why are you making that face, Adam?
I was just checking your ratings, and I was surprised in a good way.
First ever 10 out of 10 from Nigel Chu.
Yeah, that's the performance I've been waiting for.
For Sonoda, no.
But yeah,
Well, he got a 10-second penalty.
he did.
Sorry, Nigel.
So that's all right. So everyone went onto a 2-stop strategy. I think some people thought they might do a 1-stop because of the safety cars. And then the final 30 laps or so, so it was Verstappen who pitted first, then Hamilton responded. I think both teams got the strategy pretty much spot on. I think Red Bull did the right thing to cover off the undercut. Mercedes probably did the right thing to not lose too much time with Hamilton. Both used the hard tyres. Any points on that, on the strategy, before we talk about the incident?
No,
Well, I think the undercut from Red Bull was just that little. It was the right idea, and they were so scared of being undercut that they kind of sort of negated their own undercuts because there was still so much life in Hamilton's tyres.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they could have gone a lap or two later, but I mean, I can understand that why they only did a 13-lap stint on a set of hard tyres.
Bottas only did 10. That's surprised. I was surprised they pitted Bottas so early.
Was that
I
on
was
the
surprised they
VSC?
did Bottas so early.
No, that was a normal pit stop. They only did about 10 laps. The first pit stop was on the VSC because that's how he jumped Perez. But the second one was just a normal pit stop. And I thought he was going to go long to try and block Verstappen or something or whatever.
I did too.
Yes. Actually, that really
Which was so there's lots of, I think they were both just kind of like, there was another with Perez, they pitted him way too early, I thought, because he had no opportunity then to ever be ahead on track of Lewis. I think they said this on the commentary as well. But yeah, it was I don't know. For me, my opinion with that for Red Bull was that it was just that bit too early and that it could I don't know, but
I think they did the right
it
thing.
kept them the lead. Yeah.
Because Hamilton was closing, I think he was like 1.1 seconds behind. So if Hamilton pits and Hamilton
he didn't pit for 3 laps or so afterwards, and he was only a few seconds off anyway when he came out. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
so,
I think it's to me it seems like one of those. I think we said the same for Kota, where the guy in second place has the advantage. Basically, it's the person in first is or the team in first is having to preempt what the people behind are doing, and the ones behind can just react to that. And I think both of them got it pretty well. Where it wanted to be. I think the overtake was a lot harder for Hamilton than if he'd been able to undercut Verstappen, which I think validates Red Bull's strategy. And on the flip side, I think Mercedes did well to not immediately match up with that. They levered the advantage by running him for a few more laps each.
I thought it'd go even longer actually, just to get more of an offset. But
I think you don't want to. I think that might be too many kind of working parts. I guess he was close before. I think you want him to come out close after, and I guess that was what was in their mind. But yeah, I think both strategies were pretty close. And to be honest, I don't think it had too much of a outcome on the result. I think
Yeah,
personally.
I think so too. Yeah. Let's talk about the incident then. So they were Hamilton was following Verstappen for within 2 seconds, within 1.5 seconds. Eventually got to his DRS. Eventually got to that key 7/8 mark. Went off the final corner.
Pretty quickly.
He said that he dummied Verstappen into turn 1 to force him to block, to force Verstappen to cover the insides and then to compromise his exit.
Which it did.
He had to run out of turn 4. They went side by side once before the incident, didn't they? Or did they? I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure they nearly did.
They nearly did, yeah. Okay,
Pretty
either
sure
way,
they did.
after a good 10-15 laps of following, they both went off the track, quite frankly. Hamilton nearly got the move done. Verstappen decided to just send it completely. And I think we're all actually going to agree that it should have been a penalty.
Well, so at the time, I was like, how is that not a penalty? I was watching with Harry, who's another Sheffield journalist who doesn't watch F1, and he could see it was a penalty. But I went back, just before this podcast, I went back and watched the start of Kota, and that has something very similar where Hamilton has the inside line going into the corner, and goes right out to the edge and pushes Verstappen off, which I see. I think they're similar incidents, and I think both of them should be a penalty, but I see why, with the stewards not giving a penalty for that, they didn't give one for this.
How did it go off the tracking quarter?
Verstappen did.
Yeah,
Verstappen
but
went off to the right-hand side of the first
Sorry, Verstappen.
corner.
Sorry, yeah. Got you.
So-
Verstappen did go off the tracking quarter.
Yeah, so that's kind of where, I don't know, that's maybe why they didn't. I think the Brazil incident should have been a penalty, and the news coming out afterwards was that they didn't even have Verstappen's front on board when they decided not to investigate it, which seems a very strange decision. But I'm just glad that it didn't kind of, this championship has been so fantastic. I don't want it to come down to a bad call by the stewards either way. So, the fact that it didn't impact the race result, I thought was good for the sport.
It's 100% a penalty. 100%. It is. You cannot do that on a racetrack. It is a stupid move. In fact, I wouldn't say it harms his reputation, but it's not good luck for Verstappen to do that for me. At some point, you got to say, right, the place is gone, and there was no chance he was making that corner whatsoever. He was about 4 cars wide off. It wasn't close.
Yes.
I mean, he knew Hamilton would have to either turn in and then collide, which is better for Verstappen, or have to do what he did, which is turn out. And I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. What it did for me, I don't see how it's not a penalty for anyone who says that is.
I think that coupled with his weaving on the straight when Hamilton did get past, I think just kind of shows he is 200% committed to this. Like he is so committed with kind of every fibre of his being that he's willing to go kind of right up to the line and cross the line. And I think that's what this is, both literally and metaphorically for it. But Freddie, maybe you have a different take.
Well, I think what tips it is that, we're talking about Kota. Well, in this situation, Verstappen drove off the track to force another car off the track. So it's the letter of the law, which we've got to be like this with all this crap. Verstappen left the track to gain a lasting advantage over another competitor. It's not corner cutting, no, but it's track extension. So to that wording, it's a penalty. And that's what I think it is. I think it is a penalty. And I think there is a definite point where you can see on the overhead shot, there's a bit of a straighten up from Verstappen where he goes, okay, yeah, we're going off then, bam. And then you can even, the fact that really, in my opinion, you can tell from the off-board shots from a helicopter, Verstappen's steering input says a lot for me about the intent.
Every time there's an incident, wheel-to-wheel incident, and no penalties given, I always think that means the stewards are saying that is fine, do no problem.
Yeah.
So if they're saying that's fine, then it'll just be absolutely. If you can run someone off the track like that, force them to have to turn out to avoid a collision, that is absolutely not right.
I think that's the point. I think they made it in commentary as well that they're saying Max can do that every lap. In that particular situation, obviously it extrapolates beyond that race as well. But just within that microcosm, then they're saying Max can do that every lap and it's okay, it's not a problem. And I think and it was lucky for the race that there was tarmac there, and it's a tarmac runoff, because if that had been gravel, then both of them would have been out the race most likely. And
but when it was gravel with Lando Norris and Sergio Perez in Austria, Lando Norris was given a 5-second penalty, and then Checo later on was given 2 5-second penalties, and that was half the incident that this was.
Yeah, completely.
I've got a question for you, Freddie.
Because I defended Lando. Yeah.
No, I was going to say Silverstone between Hamilton and Verstappen. You didn't think that was a penalty. Well, isn't that the same thing as what kind of happened
Happened on the track,
on Sunday. Yeah, but Hamilton wasn't making a corner.
but that doesn't matter.
Well, it does. If you're not making a corner, oh no,
If-
I'm
if-
not going
if-
through this
if
again.
If he
I'm not
didn't
doing
make the
this
corner,
again.
if he didn't make the corner and it happened, I'd say they're comparable. But
He
that's
wasn't
not
made.
what happened.
I still think Hamilton had potential to make the corner in Silverstone, I'm afraid.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I don't buy that he was going to go straight on, because he had significantly turned into the corner by the time they touched anyway into Cops. In this one, it's much earlier in the turning of the corner. You look at the angle of Verstappen when they're at, this instance this is most comparable to is 2016 Austria, where Rosberg just didn't turn in on the final lap. And then Hamilton was like, well, I've got to turn in because that's what you do in corners. And then they had a clumsy collision and Rosberg lost his front wing and then finished fourth and Hamilton finished first. That's the only incident I feel that you can compare it to. And that was obviously entirely different and at slow speed. Actually, no, you can compare it to whatever you want, but I feel like I can compare it to him easily, is what I mean.
Yeah, I get that.
So,
I get that.
yeah, and I kind of think, yeah, it's very penalizable.
We all want to see good hard racing. Well, for me, good hard racing is Perez and Hamilton earlier in the race when they had a good dice for 2 laps. I think Hamilton got by, but then Perez going back, and then Hamilton gets back the next lap. That's good hard racing. This, there's a line, and it's being crossed by an absolute mile.
Yeah, talking about like good hard racing. For me, hard racing is within the limit. I mean, like, let them race isn't anything to do with pushing them off the limit and that kind of thing. Yeah, nice try. I mean, they've got to let them race on their cans now. But anyway,
it worked though. Well, I don't know if that specifically worked, but their lobbying might have helped. Which it
was embarrassing. I thought, frankly, I think because we can hear it, it's frankly, and it's both sides. Ron Meadows at Mercedes, Jonathan Wheatley at Red Bull, even every other team in the grid that we don't really hear. It just gets a bit embarrassing when they're just blatantly just lobbying. But anyway, that's just because we're hearing it, and it also is sassy, which is fun to watch. But hard racing, Max Verstappen versus Charles Leclerc, Silverstone 2019. You couldn't put a cigarette paper between them from the entire thing until, I don't know, there was a VSC that separated them a bit. But then they still found out how to race each other ridiculously around the outside of random corners. I've never seen cars move more aggressively into Stowe. And that's let them race. That is let them race. Because they're not breaking the rules. Maybe one of them gets pushed wide a bit and keeps his foot in it and comes back on. But fractionally, just to stay side by side through Vale and Club. Which is a bit, if you're going to be Leclerc, really like, that's when you say let them race principle to overrule a car going a bit off the track. Let them race isn't a car that's definitely lost the corner, choosing to brake probably 40 meters later than it normally would, and then nearly not making the corner, and then not making the corner. So, yeah.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about no onboard footage, that's fine, because clearly there was an issue with the camera. We didn't see any on board with Max that whole race, I'm pretty sure. And it hasn't been shared on Twitter by someone on F1 TV. So presumably there was an issue with that onboard camera. Anthony Davidson from Sky did imply that it would be saved locally into the camera. So I'm of the assumption that there will be footage there to find. I'm assuming it's not been released to save the graces of the FIA,
Yes.
if anything. But presumably that can be presented as new evidence to launch an appeal to drop Verstappen from second to third. But who knows? There wasn't an investigation in the first place, so maybe there isn't possibility for an appeal. But that's too technical. That's my point. Weird. No investigation is. I think we should be picking that up on a bigger deal than no penalty. It was noted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've had a little bit of a moment.
No. I think that's correct. I don't understand how you can't investigate it, really, but it's annoying, but as I say, I'm just glad that it's not something that's going to decide the championship, being a bad steward's decision or lack of decision. Yeah, that's kind of, I feel like that's fortunate for the sport, really, because if that that's farcical. If that's not given a penalty and Verstappen wins, and that's major point in the championship, that would be put a shadow on the sport.
There already are shadows on this championship. I don't really think we can worry about that.
There's a lot of shadow. There's a massive shadow.
I think one
Yeah.
comes three or four races from the end, you know, at such a major turning point, at such a major race. I think that'll be one of the ones people remember more than some of the others. Personally.
Last point on this incident: if your Mercedes ignored that it wasn't investigated, would you appeal it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
If you can.
Yes.
Too. Yeah. 100%.
The fact they're trying to appeal,
like the red port still, so you got nothing to lose, really.
the fact that they're trying to appeal something we addressed at the head of this, well, I addressed at least, about the wings, the fact they're trying to appeal something that's a non-event, then they surely should appeal an event.
I agree. Halter did manage to find his way past. He literally had to be like a good half a car length ahead then to move across to make sure.
He gave two fingers up with his defense.
Yeah.
He knew
Yes.
exactly. He really learned how to race Verstappen in that particular part of the track, as did Verstappen, to be fair. He didn't get drawn into defending into turn one again. So
But that's the thing. I think Verstappen did well to keep him back for as long as he did. But
I agree.
As we talked about before, Hamilton to not overheat his tyres and stuff, to stay within 1.5 seconds. That's just as, if not more, impressive. So he took his win, 101st win of his career. I'm saying I think it's the best weekend, not necessarily the best win, but best weekend performance I've ever seen in my 15 years of watching F1.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Yeah,
The only thing that gets
likewise.
close is Vettel in Monza 2008. That's the only thing.
Yeah. Which day do you think was the best? Most impressive?
Oh gosh.
Thursday.
He was pretty
weekend.
down in the press conferences. I'll tell you that, he was proper down.
It's ineligible. It's ineligible day because it's not on the weekend.
Oh, it's so difficult because even the qualifying, I thought that was an excellent lap. I know Verstappen didn't
Yeah.
lap it, but I still think that was a brilliant lap. I think it has to be the Sunday, just because that's what it's won, just because it was against Verstappen. And I thought before the race, even if he does get up to Verstappen, he'll find it difficult to pass him or difficult to pass him without contact. I think it has to be the Sunday for me.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I can't remember. I don't know if it is the biggest pole margin of the year on one of the shortest tracks. If you're factoring it into length and doing all of that business, I'm sure it probably is the biggest qualifying lap advantage of the year, which says a lot, I think.
Verstappen at the wet and Spa, maybe.
Maybe, yeah, that's a point. That one, and also, I mean, in dry. Then let's say dry, because he has the caveat of dry. But yeah, Saturday was phenomenal, and Saturday obviously set up Sunday. I think you've got a couple it all together. 3 days.
Yeah, that's why I gave it a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
To me, I guess the Sunday's the most unbelievable in that I kind of thought, Friday obviously he could take pole. Saturday, I didn't think he'd get that high up the grid, but it kind of feels getting up to fifth and overtaking Norris isn't the same as getting 10th to first and overtaking Verstappen. I think the latter is harder, and that's kind of why I placed that. It's a bit more impressive. I think the fact that he won driver of the day, he never wins driver of the day because enough people don't like him, but the fact that he did kind of just shows the level of performance. So I think all of the days were fantastic, but the Sunday was, I think, for me, just a shade higher. I think I'd say that was the best day, but like you say, a 10 out of 10 weekend overall.
There's a very fun statistic that sprint racers have thrown up that has really obviously got my back up, which is that Valtteri Bottas now officially has more pole positions this year than Lewis Hamilton does.
Oh, wow.
Valtteri's got 4, Lewis has got 3, and that's obviously excluding Lewis's mega lap in Silverstone, which was mega, and this mega lap here, both 2 of the best laps of the season qualifying wise, in my opinion, not counted as pole positions, which irritates me, but we've all had that debate. But just it's a fun quirk that Bottas now has won more than Lewis.
He's also on 101 pole positions and wins now. He's level.
And this is episode 101 of the Winging It F1 podcast.
Oh wow!
Yes.
Oh, that is mad.
Crazy. So
I put a tweet out after the race and said something about winning 101 as the subject, because that's what they call classes in America, isn't it? Adam, you're over there. And they put 101 at the end of everything.
I haven't done any. I've done advanced single camera production.
They do on they
Cameras 101.
They do on telly, like ladders 101 and stuff like that. So this was winning 101 by Sir L. Hamilton.
Oh, I thought it said winging.
Yeah. And then
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's a fair enough thing to think. Winning, how to win 101 by Sir Lewis Hamilton.
Last thoughts on Hamilton before we talk about other drivers.
Yeah, you're giving him a lot of airtime.
We are, but you know what? This is generally, it's one of these things where I don't think I'm going to see this again for a good few years. I really don't. It was
a few decades, mate.
Special.
Yeah.
It was a generally special moment. So mature, had everything. The way he attacked, it is just pretty much the perfect drive. It was just phenomenal. Really, really was. So
I think you get those drives that are like steamrollers, where the competitive nature seems to be already decided. You seem to think, well, there's no way this guy's unbeatable this weekend. I think you've only really had it with Lewis. I've had a couple of times maybe with Max, one or two of his Mexico drives. You just kind of felt like, well, there's no opportunity for anyone else to win this just because of the sheer head down nature of the attack from someone. But setbacks for drivers, back in the day, we'd say, 2018, you'd say Verstappen getting beaten to pole in Mexico by Ricciardo was a setback, but you still have the kind of feeling that, well, he's unbeatable today. It's the fact that you can have that kind of impression from Hamilton when he's had, that big it up as a 25 place grid penalty. Essentially it is. Where he's had, disqualification, on top of that, a grid penalty on top of that, and has had to fight for a win against one of the most fearsome competitors in Formula One history, and has done it, is mega.
And I find it really cute that the Brazilian crowd like him, because it's not a link. There's there's no link in terms of he's from there or Mercedes are from there or have a driver from there. Like, it's entirely his love for Senna and their love for Senna kind of mutually supporting each other, and you can see he fed off that all weekend in his Instagram posts and his Twitter posts and whatever. You could kind of see that coming through. Again, he put one out in Portuguese, or like with the Portuguese translation at the bottom for the post race one. I think I really like that, and it was a fantastic return to Brazil. Which I don't know whether I'm talking about this too soon, but I'm talking about it now, so we're on it. That it was a really fantastic return to Brazil after a year out, and kind of just showed everything that's fantastic about the track and as Sao Paulo as a Grand Prix venue. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. So 14 points between Hamilton and Verstappen. 3 races to go. Let's talk about some other drivers quickly then. Already talked about Verstappen, so we can just skip him. Bottas and Perez. I think they had pretty similar weekends, Bottas and Perez. They were both kind of what you'd expect, I'd say. So Perez, obviously, they didn't have the best Saturday. He got stuck behind the sights, but then he made up for it in the race. And then Bottas, the opposite, had a great Saturday, but then got back on Sunday, but then the virtual safety car saved him. So they were pretty level in terms of what you'd get.
I'd say Bottas. I think the fact that he jumped Verstappen at the start and held him off to get a point over him in the sprint race. I think that's. I don't think you'd expect that. I think having seen the starting grid from the sprint race, for the sprint race, then you guess Verstappen will beat in both races. So I think to do that, obviously he got fortunate with the VSC that he was able to get ahead of Perez by a decent margin, and there wasn't really a battle after that between them. But I think it was, yes, he could have. Well, I don't know if he could have done more kind of physically. You could expect more from him on the Sunday, but to be in that position in the first place, I think deserves some credit.
I think this is the time of year where we shouldn't be expecting more from Perez and Bottas on the Sunday, because this is the time when Verstappen and Hamilton should be at their most complete and competitive and driven, because they're at the crucial stages of winning a championship right now, and this is when you're going to get the serious star driving from Verstappen and Hamilton, and that's what they're good at. And we know countless times, we've said countless times before, that this is where Hamilton thrives a lot of the time. So this is the kind of time where there really should be a gap between Bottas and Perez, respectively to their teammates. And I think really they both had good weekends. Perez a very good pace in comparison to Verstappen.
They were matching the leaders, weren't they? Bottas and Perez for quite a bit of the race. Yeah.
They were, and they were very much all involved in every pit stop of the race. So I mean, Perez was put out of it by Red Bull because they were trying to fight off Bottas, because they expected Bottas to go long, but then that meant they had to pit Bottas, and that just meant that they were in their position. But I think Bottas's pace at the end of the race, where he was closing on and ailing Verstappen, let's be honest, but yeah, he was 3 and a bit seconds off Max at the end. Very good. Actually,
how did that happen? Because Max was
like, the wick up, just drove it. I don't know.
Yeah, like when Hamilton and Verstappen were fighting, Bottas was about 6 seconds, 7 seconds back, because when they were talking about penalties, and at that stage a 5-second penalty wouldn't it put Verstappen back behind Hamilton, but it wouldn't have the impact on Bottas. And then I didn't really look at the gap after that, and then it was kind of when we did this podcast, like, he's only 3.5 seconds behind. So
I think Verstappen was worried about hitting a bit of a cliff, to be honest. He has said that his tyres were one of the reasons why he was struggling to stop in the aforementioned Hamilton Verstappen runoff incident, which is rich. But anyway, so I think,
knows all of them.
Whoops, a 50k fine for touching your rear wing. And he went and jokes about it on a stream, which was quite funny, actually.
It was funny.
Yeah. So yeah, I think he was struggling with his tyres a little bit at the end, and Bottas had been in a bit more of a conservative run anyway because he was on his own on track.
Yeah, and then Perez ultimately took the fastest lap at the end, doing his job. Because I think that's
surprising turn of events.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately you still have to execute it, don't you? Because if you make a mistake, but it's what you'd expect, I think, because you're on fresh, soft tyres, low fuel. So
yeah. The race where Mercedes screwed up and Bottas got the fastest lap at the end.
Zandvoort,
yeah.
Yeah, then Hamilton got it, didn't he? He got it back.
Yeah, but it's just like an extra set of pit stops that didn't need to happen.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I was slating them for their strategy that day. Let's talk about the midfield. Ferrari, bit similar to Mexico, lonely race, but got the result they needed, and now
Ferrari
I think the 21.5 points ahead of McLaren, something like that now. So they've got 30, one hand, I guess, on that battle.
Yeah, they're 31 points ahead and a half. They've got it. As far as I'm concerned, that's it. I don't see, unless Ferrari have a double retirement and McLaren get a 1-2. That's the kind of level of, because even if Ferrari have a non-scoring weekend, then they're still, McLaren need to.
They're still 15 points or so ahead, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. McLaren aren't going to get, probably 25 is the absolute most they're getting out of a weekend. And having said that, Ferrari have scored. I mean, they've only had non-points finishes twice since France or since the Austrian weekend. So they've just been consistent and put it all together. And I think it was, like you say, it was kind of a very quiet weekend from Ferrari because they were kind of back off what was happening up front, bar when Hamilton overtook them in about half a second, and never under pressure from behind. So but they've got it now, I think, anyway.
I thought Sainz had a great weekend, especially on the Saturday. But then I think Leclerc, it was just all about track position from the start, and Leclerc managed to jump him on the first lap. But they were pretty evenly matched, and they were both pretty much on top of their game, really.
Sainz had one of his best weekends at Ferrari, which obviously helped Ferrari in the situation. I'm not quite on the same side as Adam of it being done deal, because I do think that the next 3 tracks are going to really be generous to McLaren anyway, particularly Qatar. They're very good in the high speed. That's been basically all of McLaren's pace this year has been high speed. And that is Qatar, that is Saudi, and that is New Abu Dhabi. So I think there is an opportunity for this to be kind of close to the final race.
Countries.
Yeah,
New Abu Dhabi.
New Abu
That's where you
Dhabi,
live, isn't it?
Fast Qatar,
Old Abu
Wiggly
Dhabi.
Saudi, and New Abu Dhabi.
The thing
the
is,
low-lying
McLaren are
buildings.
going to have to get podiums, though, aren't they?
Yes.
Realistic to haul it in. And I think Ferrari are going to have to drop back a bit, which I don't see happening. I think Ferrari are, I mean, AlphaTauri is too far behind in terms of pace. And Alpine are not going to challenge. I think Ferrari, even if they get 7th and 8th, that's going to be fine, 7th and 8th. So,
Yeah.
Fun little fight between Alpine and AlphaTauri, still on equal points.
Yes.
As well, which is if we're going to talk constructors. We've got a nice little fight, 10 points in it for first place, 30 points in it for third place, no points in it for 5th place, and of course, the others exist.
Alpine and Gasly. Gasly went on a 2-stop, and Alpine with both drivers went on a 1-stop. That's why Gasly was overtaking them.
Yeah, and it was tight. It was tight.
It was, yeah. I think Alonso was trying to toe Ocon around in his DRS to keep Gasly behind him. So that was a good little fight. And any other? It nearly did, yeah. There was that incident with who was it? Tsunoda
and Stroll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tsunoda, was he too aggressive? Or I thought he was entitled to some room, you know.
He made the corner, which was the bit that stood out to me. He made the corner, and he would have got that corner on that line, but it is just a big old lunge, and really he could have got that move done easily into turn 4, and that's the thing. And I don't know. There wasn't a 10-second penalty.
If you're in control of your car, you're not locking up, and you're making the apex. I don't see what else is. I don't see what's wrong with that personally. I think you're entitled to some space.
But I think the car he was overtaking was so far ahead of him that it becomes banzai. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I kind of think I don't know. It was if you get the move done, you get the move done. But it was a banzai move, and he did go into the side of a car and significantly damaged that car. So
I think
I just feel because Ricciardo's done it. Oh well, maybe not recently, but a few years ago, Ricciardo used to do it a lot, and everyone loved it. So I thought it was a kind of similar move. It's just Stroll didn't really give much room, but that's just my take.
Yeah, I think
Ricciardo completed the moves, and he would go for ones where I think it was. It's the thing with turn 1 in the center S. It invites that kind of move, but it also it's not one you can bail out of to let a car overtake you in a way. You've got to kind of be on a decent line into turn 1, and you turn in very early. So Stroll would have been committed to a line very early for that anyway. So, and probably definitely before you'd realised Tsunoda's going to clobber his left side pod. So, I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think it's the closest thing to a racing incident that race had. So,
yeah, I guess it's.
I missed a racing incident though, anyway. So.
Follow up to Mr. Brightside. I think like these kind of incidents just kind of, I guess, feed into like narratives around drivers. I think, like you say, it's, you know, it could go either way. Ricciardo does it and pulls it off. It's amazing, and kind of, especially pre his McLaren years, it kind of fits into kind of his narrative of like amazing late braking overtakes. This is, you know, swashbuckling driver. With Tsunoda, it's just kind of, you know, it's another incident in a year of incidents that's just not quite clicked for him, and I think that's kind of that drives a lot of the way people view it. That, you know, he went in a bit too deep. That not all of the blame is on him, but it's kind of when you add it into all the other incidents he's had, it's just not a great look. But it was very significant for the race and the championship because it brought out the safety car, which closed the pack back up. Who knows what with? I mean, Hamilton could have caught up in about 3 laps anyway, but we'll never know.
One sentence on the safety car, I just want to say, why did it take 3 laps to come out? There's a whole front wing where a car, if it just had a little bit of where there was on the race before in the sprint, a car did go into that bit, Raikkonen, very easily. So
I thought
be quicker.
Yeah,
I had a
was
rant about this
wondering why
after
it's so
Baku,
long.
but
Too busy.
yeah.
Yeah, too busy trying to find Verstappen's onboard footage. No, I think you're right.
No, sorry.
Any other drivers or incidents you want to talk about before we do 5 minutes on Qatar?
I would like to speak about Latifi legitimately outqualifying
Oh
Russell,
yeah,
because I
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
qualifying.
I was very impressed with him. Obviously the Williams has sort of become a bit of a dog in the past few weeks, which might be, who knows, better to Latifi's style of driving. I doubt
yeah,
it.
I think it is. I think it's suited his style more. Like weirdly, it's bringing him closer to Russell because the car isn't as on rails. Weirdly,
Which is good for Latifi. I mean, maybe that's the case. I mean, also, maybe they're just building a car that's more suitable to the driver that they're keeping,
Yeah.
or learning the setup for that situation. I wouldn't be surprised if there's 70% of the setup briefings are focused on Latifi and 30% on Russell, just in terms of conversion. So there's that. Someone to speak about. Adam, do you have anyone you want to speak about before I go on to my next ones?
No, I guess Norris had a puncture on the first lap and then made his
yeah,
way
that was
back
his
up
fault.
Back up to the point.
Yeah, back up to the point, which I think deserves a shout out, but nothing more. He didn't make his way all the way up to fifth, despite having 3 times the laps that Hamilton had to do that. So, shows the golfing class there, which is actually a good pun because golf sponsor McLaren. But I feel like it deserves a shout out. So
He would have been running in third if he didn't move over too early, though. So that's a big missed opportunity.
He would have been squeezed out by Perez, I think. I think he would have been fighting for it, though. You're right.
Raikkonen failed to qualify in the top 10 for the first time at Brazil in his career. That's my only other.
I thought he had a good drive on Sunday, though. If he didn't have his collision with Giovinazzi, I think he would have finished in the points.
Yeah,
because he had
he would have done.
Yeah, he made it like 8
miles quicker than Giovinazzi in the race.
Yeah, he made 8 positions.
He was on very good form this weekend, was Kimi. Actually, this Alpha is coming into its own a bit at the late end of the season.
It's a bad. I mean, they need.
It's a good car in bad hands. Is
kind of
been my points? Kind of opinion the whole year. I don't think they can get 12 points, they get which is a shame.
Williams. It was a bad weekend for drivers to have good recovery drives that weren't Lewis Hamilton, because they all kind of get swamped. It's like, oh well, he didn't do what Lewis did. So yeah, but yeah.
I thought Vettel had good pace.
I think he had a slow stop, which is why he fell out of points.
It was a shame that he didn't get the points, and I think also Norris's offset and Alonso's offset strategy also didn't help him out. But I thought he had very, very good pace all weekend, and he was running 6th legitimately in both races at various points. So fair play to him.
Good to see. And remarkably, there's another race in just a few days. The final
goodness me.
It's just relentless, this F1 stuff, just like Hamilton on at the weekend. What do we expect this weekend? Hamilton, Mercedes surely have to be favourites, but when there are favourites, as Freddie, you probably want to talk about, the favourites don't win, or they do win, but then it's a bit tougher and stuff like that. So what are you predicting or expecting this weekend?
Predicting a bore fest, I'm honest. I have no idea what to expect, apart from that this bike track is hopefully going to be annoying for the drivers because of all the gravel. If we can get a few gravel and a few safety car moments because of the gravel, then you can get some very fun slipstream down safety car restarts down that track.
Like
in a way that, like Portimao, exactly. With a very early start finish line on a very long straight. I haven't looked up how long the straight is, but I think it's a rival to many of the other long straights in this championship.
Mexico one, is it that long?
in the long straight championship of the world, this one is up there. The back of it probably is quite sweepy and a bit all right if you're on a motorbike, so maybe it'll be okay in a car. Who knows?
Well,
I reckon Bottas is going to win.
Well, I was going to say, there's unlikely to be any grid penalties this weekend, so it should be a pretty clear-cut fight. No sprint format, back to the normal format.
Why not do a sprint format? It's the best track to do a sprint format on. do it on a track they've not been to.
Makes
I
sense.
think they only had one practice as well. Yeah.
Exactly. Even better. I think they should do a sprint at Miami next year.
The only thing is, overtaking does look difficult on this track with the high speed.
Yeah, that is the thing.
Doesn't high speed make cars follow easier?
Depends if it's like flat. If it's flat out, then yeah, but if it's not, then
If you stick
It's
one
not
of
multiple lines
Hamilton
anyway.
or if you stick one of Hamilton or Verstappen at the back of the grid, then overtaking will be easier. So there's your formula for success, F1.
Who knows? Maybe Verstappen will lick Mercedes' rear wing or something and get given a harsher penalty.
Nico Hulkenberg's won there before at Qatar.
That's Sergio Perez.
Yes.
Wow.
So there's pedigree.
GP2 Asia.
Yes.
GP2 Asia. What a championship.
The Davide Rigon, who I hadn't heard of about 20 seconds ago.
Oh, Davide Rigon.
Yes.
GT driver now.
One
Yeah.
minute, 38 seconds, 0.7. So, you know, if any
I
of the
think
drivers
things
can
look
beat
out
I
that.
thought,
for-
didn't Nico Hulkenberg get a 136? And like outright.
Not, I don't know. According to Wikipedia, no. But that could be
Yeah, I'm wrong.
Wrong.
I'm thinking of something else.
Great.
thinking of Abu Dhabi. Yeah.
I think the things to look out for is who's quick straight away. Because if you're quick straight away, then you can just start thinking about setup and optimizing stuff. So I think that'll be more important than normal. But and it's at night, isn't it? So really, only the second practice session will be more what they call it, representative. So I think that's another factor. But yeah, I think Mercedes have to be favourites, but
Yes, they do. They
Yeah.
do, particularly with the
Who
straight line
knows?
speed this race.
there could be an incident at turn one because of the long straight, for example.
I mean,
That one turn, so.
Honestly, that's what I'm looking not forward to. Looking out for most is if and when Mercedes and Red Bull or Verstappen and Hamilton go wheel to wheel. That's where I think the most drama will occur. So yeah, maybe. Is there anyone else you think it will particularly suit? Well, you mentioned it might suit McLaren more, but is there anyone else you think, yeah, they could be?
I think it's impossible to say for a new track. I think it's pretty much impossible to say. So,
Well, I think Williams are going to be fast. So there we go.
Well, they
Nice.
have quite a draggy car.
Woo! Go
Anyway.
Williams. Yes.
Oh, one sec. Before we round out, the qualifying lap record was achieved by Nico Hulkenberg with
There we
1
go.
minute 35.7. Rounded up to 136. I knew I'd seen that somewhere.
Oh, so the race
Lap record is Davide
that makes
Rigon.
sense.
So there we go. So I'm predicting a lap time in a modern Formula One car. This will be a fun game. Of a 114. Okay, 114, 118. Adam, what do you think? Don't split the difference and say 116. That's the correct thing to do, though. But
no, the correct thing to do is be the lowest or highest, really.
actually, it's probably online somewhere.
Yeah, but I'm not going to look. I will go 115.
Nice. Well, there we go.
Nice.
Let's find out who's right. Come qualifying on Saturday.
Yes.
What a weekend, guys.
Yay!
Thank you for joining me for the podcast, even though we planned to do it. So I don't know why I'm saying thank you, but I've just said thank you.
You're
You're
welcome. Nigel.
welcome.
It was a pleasure, as
It was
always.
absolutely my pleasure to do this podcast with you. I hope
you.
the check's in the post.
I'll toss it up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Why is Adam giving me that face? I don't know. I'm going to say bye. Say bye.
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 We'll see you next week.